Hello, beautiful people. It is me, Tasha K with Goddess Day, and I am so excited to be here with you guys today. And I would especially love to welcome our guest, Carly Perry. Thank you so much for being with us today to talk about this very important topic of being addicted to success and how the search for success is killing us slowly. So, I know the title might seem a little bit dramatic. That's what my sister said when I told her what the title was. She's like, "Okay, it's definitely eye-catching." But the reality is that our addiction to stress really is killing us slowly and we don't realize it. We don't realize all the ways that it is impacting our bodies because it's not happening like immediately. When you have a cold, you see the symptom, you know the impact. But when you are stressed and all the things that it does to your body, it's like this erosion over time. And it impacts you over time. And we're going to get into that more tonight. Carly, thank you so much for being here. I would love to hear from you. Why do you think that this topic is so important?
Well, like you said, it's that silent killer, isn't it? I mean, how many illnesses do we know where one of the factors for it is stress? And like
Hmm.
you said, stress is something that is kind of now very much a natural and accepted part of life. It's kind of like we expect everybody to be stressed, and it's having such an impact on everything, not just our physical health, but our mental health, um, and also like the health of our families and society as a whole.
Hmm.
And so something really needs to kind of shift on lots of different levels for us to kind of get past essentially what is a bit of an epidemic.
I'm glad you said that you think that something needs to shift. And I think that, not only has stress become accepted, I think it's predictable because of the type of lifestyles that we have, right? So when people are stressed out, I don't think it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. It's like, oh, of course you are. You're doing this and that and that. And it makes perfect sense that because of all the things that you're doing, you're going to be stressed. And I think we don't necessarily have that perspective because as kids, we're able to do so much. Like we just have a wildly different capacity to do stuff as children. And like, when I was in school, I would go to school and then I would be on the cheerleading team and then I would do stuff at church and then I would come home and do chores and then I would do my homework and then I would go to school and do it all again. And I just had this boundless amount of energy. And it's like as you get close to 30, it's not the same. It's very different.
Yeah, and it's not just, I think with that as well, it's not just the amount of stuff that we put in our diaries. I mean, that's one of the problems. We tend to overschedule. You want to be doing all these great things. It's also with every experience, we're attaching narratives about our self-worth to it, and we're comparing ourselves to others, and we're um, trying to achieve things in life that then as they don't happen or as it starts to feel too much, we have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And we think, oh, when I get that next job, this will feel better. And it doesn't. And we've kind of been conditioned that we should always just be chasing the next thing as well. Um, so it's there's lots of different layers. And then also as well, because you've become so used to that feeling of stress, you naturally seek it, because to not feel stress, not feeling that heightened state, in that kind of go, go, go energy, can feel really unfamiliar. So then you kind of feel like something's wrong until you go and find the next project, the next dream, the next activity, the next hobby, the next drama, whatever it is, to then kind of feel that space, because we're just used to functioning on such a high level, like you said, like all the time. So that stillness actually can feel quite confronting, I think. You
And
know,
like you're a lazy bum, You're like, I'm supposed to be doing something. Oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough. So, by way of proper introduction, Carly Perry is a somatic coach and speaker who guides professional women to embody the leader they already are by using the wisdom of the body and the intellect of the brain to enhance their presence and increase their self confidence so that they can be agile inspiring, impactful leaders in all areas of their lives. And I want to just, break that down a little bit. Um, you guide professional women to embody the leader they already are using number one, the wisdom of the body, and then the intellect of the brain to enhance their presence and increase their self confidence. So, I want you to break that down for us. When you talk about the wisdom of the body and the intellect of the brain to enhance presence and self confidence, what do you mean by that?
So as humans, I think we've kind of been taught that, the mind is separate from the body, that everything of worth and value goes on purely in our brains, and it's just not the case. The body is constantly communicating with us. It takes in far more information than our brain actually consciously processes, and our body kind of filters out what it thinks is or isn't right. And so some of those things don't make its way into our conscious, but our body will react to it anyway. And then as our body has a reaction, our brain then will create a story that's maybe not necessarily where that feeling came from.
Mm-hmm.
And that can do with things, in the nervous system. So this fight, flight, so these stress responses, these freeze responses. It can do with filtering out things that your mind has told you, that you've said is important. So, we've all heard the thing of, if you want to buy a black car, because you're like, oh, I don't see that many black cars. And then all of a sudden, everywhere you go, you're suddenly like, oh my God, they're everywhere. And it's because you told your brain that it's important. So now your physiology kind of adjusts
Mm-hmm.
to then let those messages go from your unconscious to your conscious. So there's that element of it as well. So when I talk about embodying your leadership, it's about kind of the reverse of that. So you have in your head, you know who you are, but you tell yourself all these stories. You have all these fears, you have all these narratives or perceptions that other people have of you, that you can't say, do, whatever it is those things are. And so with the work of sort of embodying your leadership, it's like stripping it back, getting you to identify who you are, what kind of leader you are, what your values are, and embodying that. So becoming that in your actions, becoming that in your words. And actually, when you sort of start to tune into your body, you like I said, you realize how much wisdom is actually there, how much you actually already know. I mean, how many times have people gone, I knew it wasn't right. My gut told me that was not right, but my brain said, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
you doing this, or gift, whatever the story is. And so there's that wisdom there that we discounter. But on the same side of that, there is a mindset piece, and the mindset piece is also equally as important. The brain is an extremely powerful tool. And so it is important that we understand the narratives that we've told ourselves about what we can and can't achieve, what we think people think of us, why we care what people think of us, what we think our role is when we do certain things, and actually understanding that, and then stripping back those stories and really coming back to who you are before all these extra layers, from your experiences, from society, kind of get put on top. And as you go through this process, what naturally happens is people are able to show up more. They are able to be more present because they've stripped away all those stories, all those distractions, all that future worry, all that sort of focusing on the past. Oh, I did that before, and oh, that didn't quite go right, or that happened to me before, so it's going to happen to me again. And so obviously when you start to get to that point, you start to build this real trust in yourself. And from that, your confidence grows. So then you show up and you're present, you're engaging, you're able to adjust to situations. That's what I mean by being agile. You're able to create impact because people know when you're in the room with them. So if you're being able to step fully into your presence, people sense that, and then they feel valued. So you can be that impactful, inspiring, agile leader because you're just content with who you are, and you're not seeking reassurance, from other people, because you're very confident in your own power. So it's a very long-winded way of explaining what I mean by that statement.
But I think you really started to paint a picture for me. And in my mind, I have these two different images of these two distinct women, and both of them are, very interested in success. But I think like when we first start out on this journey, we have this idea that the frazzled and busy hustler is what it looks like to be this mature woman on a journey for success. And then I think we go through this process that a lot of us are on now, that allows us to become the grounded and confident woman that you talk about. And those are two very distinct women. And I think they probably have very similar goals and intentions. And it's just this, growth process that has you move from one space where you're like hustle mentality, I'm gonna work, 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 grind myself into the bone. But also, not to mention, your body is more forgiving in that area, as it allows you to develop more maturity to realize you actually need to sit down somewhere and relax. So, this conversation that we're having today is really about how do you go from, being addicted to success in a way that's causing you harm to being somebody who is really grounded in your self-worth and who you really are, and really leveraging that to create the type of agility that you talk about, and leveraging all the presence, leveraging all of that to truly step into that success. So, Carly, one of the things that you mentioned that I was kind of, I won't say that I was shocked, because obviously, like, we're all in this kind of progressive society, but you were talking about how important it is for us. How often we have this feeling of like chasing the next thing. And in America, we refer to that as the American dream, right? And it is very dominant, right? When I was growing up, I knew from the time that I was in elementary school, I had to get into a good high school. And then I had to get good grades in high school so that I could go to a good college. And then I'm working, working, working my butt off in college so that I can get accepted into a career of my choice. Right. And then it's like, and then it's the house, and then it's the kids, and it's the dog. And it's like, you're always chasing that next thing. What does that look like in Britain?
Pretty much the same. It's not. It's not any different.
Not any different.
Yeah, no, it's not any different.
So we're all just out here chasing the carrot, chasing the next thing, and we're
Yeah,
thinking that it's that next thing that's gonna make us happy.
yeah, and it's been, it's a fear element. If you don't do these things, you have it bred in from you, like you said, literally from the moment you go to school. And it's a fear. If you don't do this, you're going to miss out on X, Y, Z. You're not going to be able to afford this, or you're not going to have a good job, or you're not going to have security. Um, and and that's where it comes from. And so we, as a society, we're breeding fear into children. I mean, I don't know if you have it in
Oh
this
my
country.
gosh, I just wouldn't have even thought about it that way. This fear of I'm not gonna make it, I'm
Mm,
not gonna be enough, I'm not gonna be successful. And then we spend our whole lives trying to fill that void to make sure that we're not gonna be in a space of lack, that we're not gonna continue to grow up in poverty, that we'll be able to make something of ourselves. I mean, I guess I knew that my motivation was like fear on some level, but I always think of it as the opposite of that, as achievement. And one of the things that you talked about with um in our previous conversation, you mentioned, I want to make sure I get it right, trauma motivation. Can you
yeah.
talk more about, because I feel like it's a perfect segue, and now I have more of a I have even better understanding of what that means. So can you share more about what is trauma motivation and how does it show up in our lives?
So it's either trauma motivation or trauma drive, and it's basically, that you have these experiences, so you do things to avoid those experiences. So, like you mentioned, growing up in poverty or not getting the job that you want because maybe you saw your parents unhappy with what they did for work, or a parent that had to work multiple jobs because, they'll say to you, well, I didn't get a college education, so these are the only jobs that are available to me, and I don't have the job security, or whatever those stories are that you grew up around. And so that's what drives you. And whilst that's great, like, this is the thing, none of this is ever bad. It's just understanding it. So that's great. You've got, like, okay, that's not what I want, and so to not have that, this is what I need to do. But the problem comes is when you're constantly in a fear state. And like we said, if you're constantly stressed, like your body's not designed to be in a stress state constantly. It does damage to the body. And what happens is, if we do try and take our foot off the pedal, we then suddenly feel unmotivated. We don't know what we're supposed to do, because we've never tried to achieve anything from a place of feeling grounded, of feeling abundance, of feeling secure, because it's always been that fear-driven thing. So this is some of the things, is when you start addressing these things, you'll often find that people who've been highly driven from a place of fear, as they start to work through it, they're suddenly like, but now I don't want to do anything, or I don't know how to do anything, because we've always done it. Like, how many people say, oh yeah, but I like a bit of stress because I get things done. And that is very true. But that's very true, because even to get up in the morning, you go through a little bit of a
right. You need a little bit of it. It's just that we are always on.
Always. And we're not just like, so you sort of, I think we talked about this before, you sort of have a window of tolerance. And so this little bit between my hands is, your optimum place for performing. And you're supposed to sort of occasionally come up and into here, for when you want to get things done. But most of us are living like way up here.
So I want to repeat that, because that, okay, we have a window, a normal stress window, right? If you're falling up in here using this like healthy stress to get things done, wonderful. But most of us are like way outside of that range, and
Yeah.
we're there not some of the time, but very consistently. And not only that, I love that you pulled it back to this idea of being addicted to success, because you said, we want, a part of us wants to be there, and then when we try to move away from it, it starts to feel like something is wrong with us. We start to have these feelings of like not being motivated. You might think that you're being lazy, and you might wonder how, and this happens to me in my business, like, to make this real, sometimes it's like, when I was struggling in my business, it was really easy for me to like rally myself and like make money for the month, right? But now that I don't have to like make money for the month, sometimes I'm just like, I feel like I should be doing more. I don't know if I'm like striving enough. I probably could be growing more if I felt some type of anxiety about something. I'm too peaceful over here. I need
That's good.
fire under me to get me to do something, because I'm just like, I feel like I could be doing more. I could be pushing myself more. I could be doing more podcasts, getting more clients, doing more advertising. But in this very peaceful place, I'm just like, just enjoying my life.
That's the thing. We're supposed to enjoy our life.
What? Get out of here, Carly. No, like, I maybe a little bit. No, but this is how we really act. We really act like it's a foreign concept to enjoy our lives, but it really feels that way, because it's like, I am, for my clients, a lot of my clients are trying to, create a pathway to first generation financial stability. They're trying to create a pathway to first generation wealth. A lot of my clients are first generation college and first generation corporate America. And so they feel this sense of achievement very, very deeply. I tell people, in reality, I think I've been stressed since I was 5. I think I've had that very high stress level since I was 5. And then now, if I try to come out of it, I definitely go through withdrawal. So it's a lot.
It is, and this is the other thing, isn't it? It's that it's the external stuff as well. So when we talk about school, it's not just the fear of not getting the grades and not achieving stuff. Like, we're taught to seek external validation from the day we go to school, or even before that. Be a good girl, be a good boy, do all these things, get the grades, keep the teachers happy, and then meet your parents' expectations, because they want this for you. And then you go to work, and then it's like, do everything your boss says because it's your boss, and you want to prove your worth. And if they're being tough on you and they're not being a great boss, well, you just need to step up and you just need to deal with it because you need their approval. And that's the other thing, is then we're seeking this success, but whose success, whose version of success are we seeking? Is it mine, or is it just something that we just get swept up in? And that's what you're kind of saying about your business, is actually the reality is, you're now at a level where I think it sounds like you feel that you have a level of success that you're happy with. And that's where you're like, no, I don't need to be doing all of it. I'm enjoying this. Like, I'm enjoying this element of my business. I'm enjoying that. And I could be doing all this other stuff. But do I want to? But then there's the part of you that's gone, oh, but no, I could be doing, because all these other people are doing this, and then I could be doing that, and then I'd be even more successful. So it is, it's just about understanding all those things. So I think once you start digging into it and understanding these things about yourself, you can then start to choose what things are genuinely for you. And it might be that you want all those things, but have you ever consciously opted in, or have you just kind of...
I definitely want to be like wealthy, even more wealthy, like beyond a shadow of a doubt. I think the question that I would really want to get to, and it's kind of the journey that we've been on for the past 3 weeks in different versions on this podcast, is really trying to address the question of what does it look like for us to stand in our power from a place of peace? Right? What does it look like to peacefully embody your power and not be raging against the machine, all the time? That, yes, I want to build wealth, but I don't want to have to do it in a way that stresses me out. And one of the things that we talked about, Carly, was trauma-based choosing. And I think that ties into this conversation, because it's like a lot of the choices that we make is from our place of not enough, of whatever traumas that we've endured, and whatever stories that we've told ourselves about the things that we have endured. So, what can you explain a little bit more about what trauma based choosing is and what it looks like and how we avoid it?
Yeah, so trauma-based choosing it is basically where we take those experiences, and those experiences then shape, obviously, the choices that we make, the way we interact with those situations. So there can be various different levels to this. So one thing that we do as humans, for example, is um, back before we were still kind of non-verbal animals, should we say? We managed to communicate, obviously, without words, and so we developed these skills to, like, read each other. And so we still have that skill today, which is great. But the sort of downside of that is we tend to, it's called mentalizing. We mentalize, but from our own perspective. So if I've had an experience that's a trauma experience, I will assume that that person may not have the best intentions for me, for example, even though they're trying to help you, but you can't see it through that lens because you think, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Somebody offering to help you with a report, we'll say, so something really innocuous. Somebody offering to help you with a report could just be that person actually just trying to help you with their report. But if you've always had to strive and push and prove yourself, because everyone's always told you you're never going to make anything of yourself, you're not good enough, you're not this, you are going to take that and assume that they think you can't do the report. And that they need, do you see what I mean? So it's not, I mean, it's maybe not a great example, but it just shows you how the lens of your perspective can impact the choices that you make. So then you don't accept the help, or you do accept the help, but
that's not even where I thought you were about to go with it, but I love it because the most important things that we choose are our thoughts. I was more so thinking about, like, making the choice of like who our partners are, what job we have, and stuff like that, which I'm sure that plays a role in it as well. But just to start with choosing our thoughts, like what we think about something.
Mm.
is so powerful to me, because what it lets me know is that, you have a traumatic experience, and it impacts how you choose to think about things. And
Mhm.
then you begin to create your entire world around a narrative that has been induced by trauma.
Mm.
Not you, not what you love, not what you like, not what the people who care about you think about you, but this experience is causing you to choose beliefs that have you build a world that in your brain, in your mind, that doesn't really serve you. And as you continue to create these thoughts that don't serve you, well, now your self esteem is low, your self worth is low. And then you begin to make external decisions that would confirm that, right? Like picking the wrong partner, somebody who doesn't value you.
That's
Um,
it. When you pick a partner, you tend to, we don't realise it, and there is quite a bit of research, but you tend to pick the people you think you deserve, but it's not always what you think you consciously deserve. So you can be like, I need a partner who listens to me, respects me, takes care of me, makes me laugh, whatever it is. And how many people, or how many of us are like, well, hang on, I keep getting these guys who are emotionally unavailable, who treat me like I'm not enough, who don't show me the respect that I deserve, who don't see me as a teammate, who don't see me as, a partner. Um, and that's actually can come from, I mean, sometimes people aren't always what we think they are, but that can often come from, well, actually, do I genuinely think I'm enough? So it's a weird thing, because it's like our brain will basically seek to find examples to validate our opinions.
right. And our real opinions, right? Not the things that we just say with our mouth,
Yeah.
but
So,
the
but
things that really lives there.
yeah. So if you're like, um, I'm a horrible person, something happens and you think you're a horrible person, you will then forever just find examples that you're a horrible person. And we have a negativity bias, right? So I think it's like um, for every 10 negative things that we'll remember, we'll only remember one positive, even though 10 positive things were said to us. As humans, we have this
Mhm.
negativity bias, and that's an evolutionary thing, right? We survive you know as a species because we were able to go, okay, if we do that, that's bad, so let's not do that again because it gets us killed. And then so the next generation, the next generation. So it was a survival thing. However, in today's modern society, it doesn't kind of play out in the same way that it should. We all do things that we know are ultimately going to kill us, drinking, smoking, dangerous sports, whatever it is, right? We know
Okay.
we don't have a negativity towards those things, do we? We just carry on doing it. It's
This
completely
is
normal.
cracking me up, because it's like, okay, we have negativity bias, but not towards the things that will actually kill us, like
Right?
drinking and smoking and
Because they're coping mechanisms. So our
like,
body's like, well, no,
come on now, brain. It's like, at some point, brain, I'm gonna need you to like work on my behalf. I always tell people, like, when it comes to wealth, sometimes your brain is literally working against you just because of
yeah,
the way it's evolutionarily evolved.
yeah. I mean, it's that thing of, and that's the thing, because your body likes. So whilst we talk about stress, if stress is familiar, like your body likes familiarity and certainty, your brain likes that. So even if it's a negative story that you've told yourself over however many years, because it's familiar, there's something, for want of a better term, comfortable about it. You recognize the feeling, what it feels like. You start changing that, and it's like, well, I don't know, is this feeling good, is this feeling bad, do I like it, should I be well, no, that's what I'm used to. And when I'm there and I'm preparing for the worst, I'm whatever it is, that gives me comfort, so I'm going to stay there. And if you take that and apply it to money, for example, you see money, these trauma stories play out in various different ways with money. So it could be that you came from where you didn't have any money, so every time you get money, you spend the money, because in there, deep rooted somewhere, is it's like, I better spend it before it goes, or I'm going to get myself this now because I don't deserve to hold on to the money. I don't really deserve to have the wealth. Or it's, I'm going to spend it to show everybody else that I'm wealthy. But actually, your bank balance is looking a bit. Or you get the other side of that, where you didn't grow up and maybe didn't have money, and then you hold on to it and you don't allow yourself to enjoy your money or invest your money, because it can play out in 101 different ways. Or you can do the thing where it's like, oh, I never had any money, so I'm going to save it. And then all of a sudden you hit a certain number and you're like, well, clearly I'm rich now. And then you go and blow it all. And then you're like, oh, now I've got to start back again. And it can play out in different ways. And it's to do with that, what you've grown up with, that, what feels familiar. Because even though sometimes you cannot be in the greatest situation, but it feels familiar. So the body has this funny way of sort of tricking you that's a good thing, because you know what to expect. So because you know what to expect, it's safe. When it's not actually what's best for you necessarily, because sometimes we have to get a little bit uncomfortable to actually find what is genuinely a safe space and a good space for us to come at things from. Because when you're not coming at it from fear, the irony is it's actually you have more control, you have more say. You're the one in the driving seat. You're not being driven by all these things you didn't necessarily choose. You're the one going, right, what is it I want to do? What is it I want to do with my money? What do I think is the sensible thing? What feels good to me?
Yeah.
What do I know is the right choice?
That's the grounded, wise woman, right?
Yeah. And that is just, that's to come at things from that perspective, to be able to face life's challenges from that perspective, because then that's your opinion, that's great, but it ironically, we do things from fear to protect ourselves, but actually when we come at things from that grounded safe space, actually we've got a full suit of armor on, because we don't need anybody else. I mean, you always do need people, obviously, but I don't need anybody else to tell me what's right, to tell me what's wrong. I feel very confident and comfortable, and I'm okay making mistakes, and I'm okay challenging things, and I'm okay trying new things, because I don't see things as a failure. I haven't, it's a learning experience. Like, you just come at things from an entirely different perspective that just, when people do this work, like, they're just like, oh my God, everything's changed so quickly, and they'll be like, what did you do? And I'm like, I don't do anything. Like, this is you. This is who you've always been. And then that's like when you really start to see the growth, because people are like, yeah, that is who I really am. And I do know what I'm doing. And I don't need anybody else's opinion. I knew all along.
Yes, it's that knowing. The inner knowing starts to come forward, because that all that doubt has been moved out of the way, the worry, the fear, all of that has been pushed to the side. And the knowing that's always been there, right? It just was filtered through all the doubt. Now it can stand on its own and really shine through.
Yeah. So it's very good.
So one of the things that you mentioned was about how we're basically, so many of the things that we're doing in our day-to-day lives, they're driven by fear and we don't know it. So, I started off by talking about the fact that we're addicted to success. And now I'm clear that part of the reason that we're addicted to success is because we have a fear of failure. We have a fear of not achieving. And we think that if we're not doing all the things, that, we're going to fall short of what we really want to accomplish. So, what are some ways that people can begin to train themselves, train their brains and train their bodies to move out of that fear, fight or flight response, and really get into their grounded knowing?
I mean, the first thing that I always do with clients is start to develop your awareness of your body, because when we're on the go constantly, because we're just so driven by the mind and all the rest of it. A lot of times we don't hear what our body is telling us. Um, yeah,
Has
so
that
it's
ever happened to you? So I know like a lot of my clients, and a lot of women in general are experiencing stress. They see the overwhelm, but they think they can handle it. They don't know that they're really stressed and it's really impacting their body. Has that ever happened to you?
yeah, yes, it has. Um, so it probably was about 7 or 8 years ago now. And a funny story for you.
Was it
I
before you became a therapist or after?
It was before. At the time, I had a corporate job. Um, I had two small children, and I was also teaching yoga. So I thought I was pretty zen. I was pretty calm. I was very much in control. And I only went to the doctor to prove to people that I was not stressed. So off I go to the doctor, and it actually turns out I was suffering with severe stress and anxiety. That's how they categorize it. They do various levels, so mild, um, but severe is like.
How did they determine that it was severe?
So they do over here. What they do is they do a questionnaire, and they ask you all these questions, and you fill in, how many nights you do this, how many days you do that. I mean, the fact that I couldn't sit still particularly well in the chair probably didn't help. um, you know, and at that point as well, to be honest, I did actually have also really bad social anxiety, to the point that I hated. I mean, I'd go, but I did not like going to places that I hadn't been before, and I wouldn't ask a shop assistant, "Oh, I can't find the milk. Can you point me in the direction?" Like I just wouldn't, which is very strange for me as a person. So anyway, so I got sent to therapy, unsurprisingly. And in the first session,
Who sent you to therapy?
who said the over here? So what happens is you go to a GP.
Oh, okay, you're a doctor.
Yeah, I go to my
I was
doctor.
wondering if it was like your sister or your husband or your mom. They're like, ma'am, you are driving us crazy. Please go. Okay, so it's your doctor. They recommended you to go to therapy.
Therapist, yeah. So, and so we're having this conversation, of course, and I turn up, and I'm very much like I am now, because us high achievers, as I will say, we're also very good at masking all of this that goes on underneath. So to everybody else, we've got it together. We look like we know what we're doing, and inside we're just like, oh my god, I'm just running from one thing to the next, praying nobody notices. And what would happen for me is something would be going on, and I would be calm, and whatever the problem was would keep going, and I'd be calm, 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 calm. Literally nothing going on in my head. And then all of a sudden I would not be calm. So there was no like natural escalation from being calm to being massive blow up, massive blow up. And so the therapist said to me, well, anything going on in your body? Do you feel your heart rate rise? Do your hands get hot? And I'm like, no, like I am like chilled. I am so chilled. I'm so zen, you know, um, cool as a cucumber. Turns out, no, I had gone way beyond the point of. So when you're in stress, like you have like the mobilized state of stress, and then when things get too much, you sort of enter what we call it can be called like a freeze state. So it's like an immobilized. So you basically sort of numb yourself out. So I was in that numb out, so I couldn't feel anything that was going on in my body. And ironically, then what would happen is I'd be numb, and then I'd only kick back in when I was raging. And then that's when you'd get something from me. So that's when I sort of started to be like,
thinking that, well, I'm not having any thoughts about it, so I must be okay. But you weren't having any thoughts because you had pretty much shut down.
mm-hmm.
You're pretty numb to how you were feeling. So you really weren't even engaging with the world in any meaningful way, and until it got to be too much, and then you blew up. So I think it's very interesting that you're like, I'm not upset about it. So, I'm not thinking any negative thoughts about it, so I must be fine.
Yeah.
But it was maybe that's an indication that you're not fine too.
Yeah.
Maybe you should be feeling something about it.
It massively is. If it's a situation that you should be annoyed by, you should feel annoyed by it. What you do with that annoyance,
Mhm.
that to me is that's a sign of whether you're actually zen or not. But not feeling stuff. If people say to me, "Oh no, I don't feel stuff," I'm like, for me, that's like a little red flag waving, being like, because it's a natural human response to feel emotions. It's just what we do with those emotions, and basically numbing out is a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism when it gets too much. You know, that's why we see so much. I mean over here, it's quite a drinking culture anyway. Um, and that's why you see so many people having 1, 2, 3, 4 glasses of wine after work, because it helps to numb, it helps to cope, it helps to um, distract, and that's what those things do. So yeah, so it's then I sort of, as I started to then listen to my body more, I was like, okay, and now I will hear my body way before my brain even tells me there's a problem.
What
Which
does
is
your
which
body say? What does it say to you?
it can be anything. It can be, you know, a turn in your stomach. It could be a tightness in your chest. It could be a just a sharp intake of breath. It could be, oh, I notice my hands are getting a bit clammy. Um, so it doesn't have to be, it's not necessarily telling you a story, but it's saying, hey, there's something here, and it could be good things. So I call them triggers. So it could be a trigger, which is something you need to explore about. Okay,
Mhm.
I had I had that. Was it a good thing, or what was it? But you can also have it for what I call glimmers, which are the good things. Because the point that you said is, oh, you'd shut off, and it's like, yeah, because if you shut off the bad parts of you, you're also shutting off the good parts, like your capacity to feel all the emotions of being human, the capacities of feeling joy also go down with that, because you're operating in a very narrow window of human experience. And that's the other thing, a part of the reason why people keep chasing, they can't feel the joy when they get that success, because they just haven't expanded their capacity.
Wow. That's really something that I haven't thought about. Like, we have really narrowed our capacity to experience different feelings and emotions, such that when we actually do accomplish something that we think would make us feel joyful, we've trained ourselves to not have the capacity to experience those emotions. So we accomplish something and we still feel numb, because that is, where we've kind of set our emotion meter. And that really resonates with me, because I was having conversations with people and I'm just like, I never celebrate an accomplishment. I just don't. I don't feel anything from an accomplishment. It doesn't feel like this important thing, and in my brain I think I should be excited and happy for it, but I'm just not.
No.
And I know for me, I say I was dealing with stress since I was 5, and I really believe that, but I didn't realize it until recently. And I would tell people, like, I don't experience stress. Like, I don't feel stress. I'm good. I can go and go and go and be good. Like, I'm very, very resilient and adaptable. And I am. But at the same time, I realized, and it wasn't until I started having the heart palpitations. I was having heart palpitations and I was having twitching in my body. And I was getting worried, like, am I dying? Do I have a disease? Like, what is wrong with me? Why is my body twitching all over? Why is it that when I lay down at night, my heart starts racing? Right. And why can I feel it sometimes throughout the day for no reason? I'm starting to feel nervous. And I'm thinking that I'm according to Google, I have some type of autoimmune disease. And then I realized, doing lots of research, like, no, you're stressed. You're stressed. And not only are you stressed, you've been stressed for a very long time. And now your body is just rebelling and telling you to sit down. And so I was like, wow. And I was like, okay, well, what does it feel like for me in my body? And for me, it feels like a lot of tension here,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of tension in my neck area. I know for some people, they carry stress in their hips. Um, and for me, it's like not being able to sleep, staying up all night, sleep schedule completely off. which is where I am now. But it's like, for me, it's being able to recognize and having the coping mechanisms that, like the breathing, it's like, okay, there are times where I just need to stop and breathe. There are
Mm.
mornings where I know that I need to do some yoga. There are times where I know that I need to create a to do list. I can't let these thoughts go on in my head anymore. I need to get this out in a to do list, and then I will feel settled and I will feel calm. So it has just been a process of elimination for me to figure out what does it look like for me to be happy and operate in a way that is optimal for my body and my
Yeah,
brain.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's about being curious because I think it's really important, with stress and all these kind of things that come from the nervous system. And I touched on it earlier. Is the whole point of it? It was designed to protect us, to keep us safe, so that we can survive. And so what's happened is over the years, your body's essentially built up this playbook of what keeps you safe. So, the first time you have a traumatic experience, your body's it might have taken you a while to work out that wasn't a good situation. So the next time you're in something that looks similar, your body and brain are already like, we recognize that, so we're going to go straight there. It
Mm-hmm.
might not necessarily play out that way, but your body's being cautious. It's trying to protect you and it's trying to keep you safe. And so I think it's really important to honor and really appreciate that about yourself. Like the human body is amazing, and just being like, okay, so you're trying to keep me safe. What is it I need to be safe from?
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know,
then maybe even re-instruction, like reteaching your
yeah,
body how to keep you safe. Like, okay, that was great for when I was a teenager, right?
yeah,
But now this is how I
mm,
want you to keep me safe.
yeah. And the irony is, something like, overworking, that strive for success, that is a coping mechanism. And it's a coping mechanism that serves us really, really well. It helps us to achieve phenomenal things. But there can sometimes come a point that that no longer serves us in the same way anymore. And so we need to adapt and adjust our coping mechanisms to serve our new needs. And like I said, it's a lot of stuff that that we talk about when I'm talking about the stuff with the body and the brain. Like none of it is bad. It all serves a purpose, and it's just adjusting and moving with your needs. But you can't know what your needs are unless you're kind of trying to have that conversation with yourself. And like you said, like okay, going right, okay, I'm not sleeping. So what is that telling me? Is it that I had a cup of coffee way too late and I just need to not have caffeine past this time? Maybe. Is it that I've got stuff on my mind? Is it that I'm too hot? It doesn't always have to be, from a stress point of view. And as you start to learn those things, you can start to build up essentially your toolkit, because the things that will help you cope with those things will be different. And what would work for me would not work for you, because we're different. The great thing with humans is we're so similar, but we're so unique all at the same time. Like
Yeah,
it's so
that's so
fascinating,
crazy.
so fascinating. And so it's really about what works for you, and it is about really building that relationship with ourselves again, and trying to work out what what our needs are. And and you kind of what's interesting is you said, oh God, I thought I had an autoimmune disease. There's various research and various trains of thought that we have seen a huge rise in autoimmune disease, and it's highly linked to stress. Because what happens is when we're stressed, we move out of how our body's meant to optimally function. We tend to take blood away from our major organs. I mean, not to the point that they don't function, obviously, but they tend to go more to the limbs, so that we can obviously run away or fight or whatever it is we're going to do. And all these things, all these processes, the increase in the hormones, like the cortisol and adrenaline that we feel when we're stressed, they actually, if we have them for too long and we don't have enough of the repairing hormones and going back to homeostasis, cause inflammation. And then what happens in terms of, our body then can't recognize what's trying to kill us and what's trying to help us. And so it kind of, an autoimmune disease is essentially kind of where the body sort of kind of attacks itself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's from prolonged periods of stress. It was this research into stress and heart disease, because we're in that inflammation, the body wears away at itself. It eats itself, essentially, not to be dramatic.
No, be dramatic. And it took me, I thought that when I had this revelation, I would just, do some deep breathing for a few days and then I would be fine. It actually took over a month to re-regulate everything, to,
That's good.
be able to not go to sleep with a racing heart, or to not have my body twitching all over the place, or
Mm,
to not, there were times where I would feel like, that feeling where you feel like you need to scratch something. I would be feeling that at night all over, really struggling to go to sleep. And it was just, um, it really did feel like my body was going haywire.
yeah.
And so it didn't take just, a few days of breathing. It took 30 to 45 days of just calming down, doing the breathing exercises, doing the yoga. I
Mm,
was drinking my tea, and I drank the tea as a trigger for me, to remind me to calm down. It wasn't even just the properties in the tea itself. The warmth of the tea just reminded me to slow down and to be calm. And so I would use it that way throughout the day. But I've noticed that when I look at, I think some people might wonder, why am I so deeply entrenched in a conversation for the nervous system and wellness when I'm a financial coach? And the reason is because that people think that money is about the numbers, but money isn't about the numbers. Money is about the life that is going on behind the scenes. And the way that you deal with your life is one of the biggest things that's going to impact what your bank account looks like. And you need a tremendous arsenal in your toolkit to of coping mechanisms specifically. Like, you need a tremendous arsenal of coping mechanisms to be able to undo all of the programming that you've gotten around wealth and create a new comfort zone. Like, to move you out of the comfort zone that you have around money, all of the behaviors, all of the ideas, all about the beliefs, all of the structures, the real life structures that you have around it. In order to move out of that, you really need to understand, what does it take to get out of a comfort zone and create something new. Because when you start to create something new, it's going to want to pull you back into what is comfortable. And people think that the hardest thing about money is, making it. It's equally hard to keep it for people who have created different habits throughout their life over the past 20, 30, 40 years. Those things don't just change overnight. And these are the conversations that get you closer to who you need to become in order to be truly successful and wealthy.
yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? It is that we sort of touched on it earlier, didn't we, as well, about that if having money doesn't feel right, or you deep down don't feel like you deserve it, you will do things that show to yourself that you don't deserve it, by spending it all and then having nothing in the bank account, for example. Um, and and it does come down to that relationship with yourself, and understanding yourself, understanding what drives, because there's lots of habits around money, like like you said, like there's lots of um yeah, just it is basically just habits that we've gotten into, that if you want to change your relationship with money, you have to change your habits. To change your habits, you need to understand what triggers you, what rewards you,
Mhm.
um, what are your blocks. Like you said, habit building is really something I do a lot with clients as well, because it's great knowing the tools. It's great knowing the mindset. But if you don't have those cues and you don't set yourself up to learn those new habits, your body naturally falls onto what's easy. Your brain naturally goes to what's easy. Like you were saying, you used a cup of tea, and your cup of tea was your trigger. Oh, this is warm. And interestingly, you probably picked it up in your hands, felt the warmth of the tea, and was like, oh, that feels warm. Ah, yes, I need to take a moment here. And you
Mhm.
found something that worked for you, because you were like, I have 3 cups of tea a day. That's a good number. When I talk about people learning to remember to check in with their bodies, I'll just do it. Say, every time you check your phone, just take a moment. What am I feeling in my body right now? And it could be that you can smell something, or you've got a hot cup of tea in your hand, or you can feel the sun on your face, or you notice that it's raining, or it might be a little bit cold where you are, or it doesn't have to be anything identifying a trigger or a glimmer. It's just starting to open up those communications so you can start making those changes. Because until you know yourself as a whole person, we've got a whole wealth of knowledge in our body that we've just shut down. And we just let the brain, with its stories and its outside influences, just run the show completely. And it's like, is that serving you? And that's a question you've got to ask yourself.
Hmm. Usually I like to break down, everything that we talked about and have something that's really actionable. However, in this conversation, I want to do something different because I feel like it has covered so many different important topics. So if you have listened to this episode, I highly recommend that you get a pen and paper and that you go back through and that you write down the things that resonate most with you. Because I think what we're pointing to most in this episode is how important it is for you to have an awareness of your body and a relationship with yourself and a commitment to transforming from that, frazzled hustler person to this woman who is really grounded and really wise and really vibrant and very present. And it takes something to do that. And it would be one thing for me to give you a list of things to do, but we've dropped so many examples and gems of what that process looks like. I highly recommend that you go through and create that process for yourself. Let it be really, really personal to what you want that transformation journey to look like so that you can start stepping into that woman who is going to be wealthy and successful. And so, with that being said, Carly, I want to hand it over to you. What last words do you have for the people?
Oh, no pressure. Um, my last words, I suppose it's to just really take the opportunity to get curious, to explore, to try new things to see what serves you, and follow what you already know deep down.
That feels really good. So, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like the conversation that we've had has been an incredible culmination of all the conversations that we've had so far. So, when we talk about being addicted to success and how that has been, rooted in fear, I really want to, liberate you and let you know that you don't have to live in fear anymore. Just get curious about what it's going to take to get you to the other side. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh, wait, before we go, Carly, where can the people find you?
Um, oh yeah, I am mostly over on Instagram if you want to find me. So I am at the Somatic Coach Official. Um, I do have some, short reel videos on there if there are certain exercises that you wanted to try, like you mentioned breathing, some self hugging, things like that can help with regulation, and you'll find bits. But that's probably the best place to reach out to me.
And what is your Instagram handle?
It is at the Somatic Coach Official.
Wonderful. I'm definitely going to check it out. I'm always looking for what are the different mechanisms that I can put in my arsenal. And when I tell you, like, there's a difference night and day between people who have that arsenal and people who don't. And you can see it. Like, the people who don't, those are the ones that have the blowout. They're always like, they're never organized. They don't know how to stick to a schedule. My sister. Versus people who do. And it's like, yes, it's never gonna look perfect. So you could just give that up right now. But it's definitely a process and it is worth it and it's valuable. So thank you guys so much and I'll see you next time. Bye.